The influencer I arrested for speeding made a viral fake story to get me fired, got my house trashed, and threatened my family, so I played the long game and got him locked up and forgotten. It actually happened on my very first solo shift. I had gotten through the hard part of the evening and was counting down the hours when I saw this bright red Ferrari flying down a busy street like it was a racetrack. I clocked it at 25 miles over the limit. I flipped on my lights and pulled it over near a strip mall where people were already starting to stare. The car was ridiculous. Custom detailing, blacked out rims, and the license plate said Influencer in all caps. I got out and walked up to the window, but before I could even say anything, the driver had his phone out and was scrolling on it. He looked like he had stepped right out of some TikTok mansion. Weird pineapple-style hair, bright white turkey teeth, and a designer hoodie that probably cost more than my paycheck. He did not roll the window down at first, just stared at his screen and smirked. When he finally did, I asked for his license and registration like usual. He laughed and said, "Do you know who I am?" I told him I didn't care, but instead of going quiet, he started going on about his 4 million followers on TikTok and how I was about to be part of his awesome content if I let him off. But I didn't listen. I kept it professional because that's what we're trained to do. I explained the violation and asked again for his documents. That is when he switched tactics. He offered me a shout-out, said he could totally help my career if I let him off. But I wasn't letting up. I told him I was writing the ticket. That's when his whole face changed. He got more aggressive. He started scrolling through his phone showing me videos of him with actual A-list celebrities. He said, "Look, I can make you famous overnight. Why be difficult?" Like he could not believe I was not impressed. I had just finished writing the ticket when he flung open the door and got out without permission. I will admit, I got a little nervous given this was my first solo shift, but I told him to get back in the car. Well, he ignored me completely and pulled out his phone. Before I knew it, he had started live streaming. He waved the phone around like a weapon and yelled, "Guys, this cop is harassing me for nothing. ACAB, ACAB-E." And I could see people at the strip mall pulling out their own phones to record. My heart was pounding, but I tried to stay calm. I asked him one more time to give me his license and registration. That's when he told me to screw off, that he was above this legal nonsense, and started taunting me, saying I should be thanking him for the publicity. I warned him that if he continued to refuse, it would lead to more charges. He laughed this demented little rat laugh and said, "I'll get you and your whole family fired, Lil N-word." That's when I called for backup. And while I was waiting, he started getting personal. He told me I must have become a cop so I could harass people, because deep down, I was a creep who wanted to do that and had to find a way. Many other cops would have likely just arrested him or tackled him by now, but I wanted to avoid violence at all costs. However, that proved impossible when he shoved his phone right up in my face while ranting to his live stream. Then he got close to me. I clutched on my weapon just as a way to warn him, but instead of retreating, he started shouting I was a pig and got even closer. He yelled that I was an ant compared to him and that I wouldn't dare use force. He got even close and actually reached his hand out to push me. That was it. I told him he was under arrest for attempting to assault an officer and failing to comply with lawful orders. He flipped instantly. He started full-on screaming, "Do you know what my lawyers will do to you? My followers are watching this live." I cuffed him while reading him his rights. Backup arrived right as I was walking him to the cruiser. During his entire drive to the station, he kept talking. He alternated between making threats and pleading with me to be cool and let him go, promising everything from cash to concert tickets if I would just forget the whole thing happened. I had no idea how serious those threats would turn out to be. By the time I finished processing him at the station, clips from his live stream were already going viral. His name was Kyle Winters, apparently some big TikTok star who made prank videos and lived in one of those content creator mansions. The sergeant told me not to worry about it, just standard procedure. The guy was clearly in the wrong, but I could tell even my supervisor was a bit concerned about the social media attention this was already generating, as his phone kept buzzing with notifications throughout our conversation. I left the station around 3 a.m., completely exhausted. My first solo shift had turned into a 16-hour nightmare thanks to all the paperwork from arresting Kyle. The booking process alone took forever, because he kept demanding his one phone call, like we were in some TV show. He finally called someone he referred to as his content manager, who apparently doubled as his lawyer. The guy showed up around 1 a.m., looking like he'd just rolled out of bed, wearing sweatpants and a wrinkled dress shirt, his eyes bloodshot from what I assumed was being woken up in the middle of the night. I overheard Kyle's lawyer telling the desk sergeant that this was all a misunderstanding and that his client was just creating content. The sergeant wasn't having any of it, though. Kyle got charged with speeding, resisting arrest, attempting to assault an officer, and disorderly conduct. I filled out all the required reports while Kyle's lawyer arranged for his bail. By the time I clocked out, Kyle had already been released, probably already planning his next move while I was still drowning in paperwork. I drove home thinking the worst was behind me. Boy, was I wrong. I woke up around noon the next day to my phone blowing up with notifications. My roommate Mark was banging on my bedroom door, the sound echoing through our small apartment. "Dude, "You need to see this," he said, shoving his phone in my face before I was even fully awake. It was Kyle's TikTok account. He'd posted edited clips from his live stream that made it look like I'd been aggressive with him from the start. The caption read, "Power-tripping cop arrests me for being famous. Police brutality, just justice, viral." It already had over 2 million views, with the counter climbing higher every time I refreshed the page. I sat up in bed, suddenly wide awake. In the video, he'd cut out all the parts where he'd refused to provide his license, gotten out of the car without permission, and tried to push me. Instead, it just showed me putting my hand on my weapon and then arresting him while he innocently protested, his voice cracking as if he were genuinely afraid. "This is bad," Mark said. "There's like 1,000 comments calling for you to be fired." I quickly checked my own social media accounts. My Instagram, which I rarely used, had hundreds of new follow requests and messages. I opened one at random. "Hope you get what's coming to you, pig." Another one read, "Found the cop with the small dick energy." I closed the app, feeling sick to my stomach. This wasn't what I signed up for when I joined the force. I just wanted to help people and make my community safer, not become the target of an internet mob over doing my job properly. I called my sergeant immediately. He already knew about the video, his voice sounding tired as if he'd been fielding calls about this all morning. "Listen, Reynolds, don't panic," he said, using my last name like he always did. "The department is aware of the situation. We've got the full, unedited dashcam footage that shows exactly what happened. Just lay low for a few days and let the PR team handle this." I felt slightly better after talking to him, but that relief didn't last long. When I checked my email, I found dozens of messages from random people calling me every name in the book. Some even contained threats. One particularly disturbing email had my home address in it with the message, "We know where you live, pig." That really freaked me out. I immediately forwarded it to my sergeant, who told me to document everything but not to engage with any of these people online. I tried to distract myself by cleaning my apartment and doing laundry, but I couldn't stop checking social media. Kyle had posted 3 more videos about me, each one more dramatic than the last. In one, he was fake crying about his trauma from being arrested. In another, he was encouraging his followers to find information about me, carefully wording it so he wasn't explicitly telling them to harass me, but the implication was crystal clear. By evening, someone had doxed me. My full name, address, phone number, and even my parents' contact information were circulating online. I started getting random pizza deliveries I never ordered. My phone rang constantly with unknown numbers. I changed my number that night and called my parents to warn them. They were understandably worried, but I assured them this would blow over soon. I wasn't so sure myself, though. The next day, I had to go back to work for my regular shift. As I pulled into the station parking lot, I noticed a small group of teenagers hanging around outside. They started filming as soon as they saw my car. One of them shouted, "It's him! The TikTok cop." I hurried inside, keeping my head down. My fellow officers were supportive, patting me on the back and telling me not to worry about some punk kid with a phone. But I could tell some of them were uncomfortable with all the attention our precinct was getting. The captain called me into his office before roll call. He was a stern older guy who'd been on the force for over 30 years, his desk adorned with family photos and commendations from his long career. "Reynolds," he said, leaning back in his chair, "I've reviewed the footage from your body cam and the dash cam. You followed protocol to the letter. The department stands behind you 100%. I felt a wave of relief wash over me. "That said," he continued, "this social media situation is complicated. For your safety, we're putting you on desk duty for the next week or so, until this dies down." My heart sank. Desk duty was where they put officers who screwed up or couldn't handle the streets, but I nodded and thanked him. What else could I do? The next few days were a blur of paperwork and anxiety. Every time I checked online, the situation seemed to get worse. Kyle had apparently made me his new content focus. He posted daily updates about fighting police corruption and seeking justice. He even started selling merchandise with slogans like, "Don't influencer me bro" and "ACAB" printed on them, making a profit off my misery. On Wednesday, 3 days after the arrest, Kyle took things to a new level. He posted a video titled, "Confronting the Cop Who Arrested Me." In it, he announced he was going to come to our precinct to have a conversation with me. I showed the video to my sergeant, who immediately increased security at the station, but Kyle was smarter than we gave him credit for. He didn't come to the station. Instead, he waited until my shift ended and followed me to the grocery store. I was picking up some milk when I heard his voice behind me. "Officer Reynolds, fancy meeting you here?" I turned around to find Kyle standing there with his phone out, live streaming again. He had 2 friends with him, both also filming. People in the store started staring and pulling out their own phones, creating a circle of digital eyes all focused on me. "I just want to talk, man," Kyle said, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "Why'd you have to violate my rights like that?" I remembered my training and the captain's advice. Don't engage, don't escalate. I turned away and started walking toward the checkout. Kyle followed me, still talking. "See this, everyone? He won't even acknowledge what he did. Typical cop behavior." I paid for my milk and left as quickly as possible, Kyle and his friends trailing behind me the whole time. When I got to my car, they surrounded it, making it impossible for me to leave without risking hitting one of them. "Move away from my vehicle," I said firmly, speaking for the first time. "Or what? You'll arrest me again?" Kyle taunted, getting closer to my face with his phone. Thankfully, the store manager had called the police. 2 patrol cars pulled up with their lights flashing. Kyle and his friends immediately backed off, acting like they'd done nothing wrong. The responding officers recognized me and escorted Kyle and his crew off the property with a warning about harassment. That night, Kyle posted the edited footage from our grocery store encounter. In his version, I looked like I was threatening him for no reason. The comments were brutal, with people calling for me to be fired, arrested, or worse. The harassment escalated from there. Someone created fake dating profiles using my photos and personal information. My parents started getting prank calls at all hours. My old high school girlfriend reached out to tell me someone had contacted her asking for dirt on me. By Friday, a week after the arrest, I was at my breaking point. I couldn't sleep, barely ate, and jumped every time my phone buzzed. The department had assigned a patrol car to drive by my apartment regularly, but it didn't make me feel any safer. Then I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Normally I wouldn't have answered, but I was expecting a call from the department's legal team. "Hello?" I said cautiously. "Is this Officer Reynolds?" A female voice asked. "Who's asking?" I replied. "My name is Jenna Martinez. I'm a content creator who worked with Kyle Winters. We need to talk." I almost hung up, but something in her voice made me pause. "How did you get this number?" I asked. "Kyle has it. He has a lot of information about you that he shouldn't have. Look, I know you have no reason to trust me, but I want to help. Kyle has gone too far this time." We arranged to meet at a coffee shop in a neighboring town where hopefully no one would recognize me. I arrived early and picked a table in the back corner with a clear view of the door. Jenna arrived right on time. She was younger than I expected, maybe 20 or 21, with purple hair and more piercings than I could count. She sat down across from me, looking nervous. "Thanks for meeting me," she said quietly. "What's this about?" I asked, still suspicious. Jenna took a deep breath. "I've been part of Kyle's content house for about 6 months. At first it was fun, making videos, going to parties, getting free stuff from sponsors, but lately, things have gotten dark." She explained that Kyle had become obsessed with growing his following at any cost. His pranks had gotten more extreme, often crossing legal and ethical lines. The Ferrari he was driving when I pulled him over, borrowed without permission from another influencer. The speeding, deliberate, to create content. "After you arrested him, he saw an opportunity," Jenna continued. "His engagement numbers were dropping before that night. Now they're higher than ever. He's monetizing all the videos about you." "So he's making money off ruining my life?" I asked, feeling a fresh wave of anger. "Lots of money," Jenna confirmed. "But that's not why I'm here. Yesterday, I overheard him talking to some guys he knows from the street racing scene. They were planning something to teach you a lesson. I don't know exactly what, but it sounded serious." My stomach dropped. "Did you hear any specifics?" "Just that it would happen this weekend, and it would make great content. I left the house after that and haven't been back. I deleted all his content from my accounts too. I can't be part of this anymore." I thanked Jenna for the warning and immediately called my sergeant when she left. He took the threat seriously and suggested I stay somewhere else for the weekend. I packed a bag and went to my parents' house in the suburbs, about an hour away from my apartment. Saturday passed uneventfully. I started to think maybe Jenna had misunderstood or Kyle was just talking big. Then on Sunday morning, my roommate Mark called. "Dude, someone broke into our apartment last night," he said, his voice shaking. "They trashed your room, like, completely destroyed everything." I drove back to the city with my dad. The apartment was a disaster. My bedroom door had been kicked in, and everything I owned was either broken, stolen, or spray-painted. The walls had slurs and threats written on them. My computer was missing, along with my spare uniform and badge. The responding officers took photos and dusted for prints, but I already knew who was behind it. What I didn't expect was for Kyle to post about it almost immediately. "Karma Hits Corrupt Cop," his new video was titled. It didn't show the break-in directly, but it featured Kyle talking about how sometimes the universe delivers justice, while smirking at the camera. His followers ate it up, with comments celebrating my misfortune. That was my breaking point. This kid had crossed every line, and the harassment was only getting worse. I needed to fight back, but I had to be smart about it. Going after him directly would just play into his narrative. I remembered something Jenna had mentioned during our conversation, that Kyle was planning a huge party at his content house that night to celebrate hitting 5 million followers, and according to her, these parties always involved drugs, underage drinking, and other illegal activities. I called Jenna and asked if she'd be willing to help me. To my surprise, she agreed immediately. She was done with Kyle's world and wanted out clean. "He's been horrible to all of us," she explained, "especially the girls in the house. He makes us create content 24/7, takes a cut of all our earnings, and threatens to kick us out if we don't do exactly what he wants. Several of us have been trying to leave for months." With Jenna's help, I contacted my sergeant and the department to develop a proper plan. After explaining the situation in detail, including the threats, harassment, and break-in, the department decided to act on Jenna's tip about the party. They assembled a team to handle the operation professionally, with proper warrants and procedures in place. I remained at the station during the operation, as my sergeant insisted it would be too risky and procedurally inappropriate for me to be directly involved given my history with Kyle. The emotional toll of the past week weighed heavily on me as I waited for updates. I felt a mix of relief that action was being taken and anxiety about how it would all unfold. The department sent several officers to monitor the party from a distance, gathering evidence before making any moves. When they confirmed illegal activities were taking place, including open drug use and the presence of my stolen badge and other property, they moved in with a proper warrant. Kyle was arrested along with several others. They found my stolen items, including my badge badge, computer, and uniform, along with substantial amounts of drugs. Kyle's reaction was predictably dramatic, shouting about harassment and threatening lawsuits, even as he was being read his rights. The next morning, I went to the station to give my official statement. The evidence against Kyle was overwhelming. They found texts on his phone coordinating the break-in, the stolen items from my apartment, and enough drugs to charge him with intent to distribute. Plus, several of his friends were already cutting deals, eager to save themselves by providing information. Kyle's lawyer tried to spin it as a misunderstanding, but the DA wasn't having it. They charged him with breaking and entering, theft, possession, with intent to distribute, assault, and obstruction of justice. His previous charges from the traffic stop were also still pending. The social media tide turned quickly. Kyle's followers started jumping ship when the unedited videos spread. His sponsors dropped him one by one. The content house owner evicted everyone after the drug charges came to light. Kyle's carefully constructed influencer empire crumbled in less than 48 hours. I got my badge and other stolen items back. The department put out a statement supporting me and condemning the harassment I'd faced. My sergeant even recommended me for a commendation for handling the situation professionally, despite the personal attacks. Jenna reached out a few days later to apologize for her role in the situation. She explained she'd gotten scared, but had sent the videos she took to the police afterward. She also told me several other content creators from Kyle's house were coming forward with stories about his manipulative behavior and illegal activities. Kyle eventually took a plea deal, 3 years in state prison with possibility of parole after 18 months, plus probation and community service. The judge took the severity of his crimes seriously, particularly the organized break-in and the harassment campaign. His social media accounts were either deleted or abandoned. The psychological impact of the harassment lingered long after Kyle was sentenced. I started seeing a department therapist to process the anxiety and stress from having my privacy violated so publicly. The department also implemented new training protocols based on my experience to help other officers deal with similar situations in the social media age. I'm back on regular patrol now. Sometimes people recognize me from the whole ordeal, but it's usually positive these days. A few kids have even told me they want to be police officers because of how I handled the situation. The weirdest part? I actually gained a decent social media following myself. The department's PR team suggested I start an official account to share what being a police officer is really like. Nothing flashy or dramatic, just honest day-to-day stuff about community policing. It's not millions of followers, but the people who do follow seem to genuinely care about making their communities better. As for Kyle, his influencer Ferrari got impounded and eventually auctioned off to cover his legal fees. I sometimes drive past the spot where I first pulled him over and think about how differently things might have gone if he'd just taken the ticket and moved on with his life. But I guess some people have to learn the hard way that real actions have real consequences, no matter how many followers you have.